Today we're going to talk about ENV and ENV-ARC. Now these two folders are resident in the RAM and on the actual Workbench preference directory. Today we're looking at two directories that will help us to... We're going to be looking at two directories today. We're looking at ENV and ENV-ARC. Now these directories reside in RAM and actually on the hard drive itself. So the ENV resides in RAM and ENV-ARC is on the hard drive or the Workbench disk. Now these two folders, or two drawers as they're called in Amiga talk, allow you to, what happens is that all the preferences that you save in your toolbar or MultiView or anything that you configure in Workbench gets saved into ENV-ARC, and on the reboot it gets hoisted into the RAM disk in the ENV, and we can see this when we go into our shell. So I'll show you that now. So we look at a shell and do a cd env for colon. We can see that's in the RAM disk. So if I do a dir on there to do a directory listen, you can see that my Picasa96 is in there, my MultiView directory is in there, and also the toolbar prefs are in there. Now these files are hoisted from they're actually copied from ENV-ARC on the actual directory system of your Workbench. So if we double click on Workbench and look in Prefs, now if you go out to the top and go Show All Files, Windows Show All Files, in there you'll find a Env-Archive, and there we've got our items that are associated with the preferences of the toolbar of MultiView. Now the reason why I'm talking about this is because I used to get myself in a state, I used to do lots of Workbench modifications, and also used to do a lot of software development on the actual Amiga, and there's times when you get into a state where you want to convert back to your defaults. You can jump into ENV-ARC and actually rename the file. On your next reboot, everything will be as you would have installed it in the first place, unless something like the actual default preferences have been copied to ENV-ARC in the first place and you've done some setting up in the install. But we can actually safeguard that just by renaming them rather than deleting them. So for instance, I've got this toolbar down here. Now say if I wasn't happy with this and I wanted just to start again, I could actually go into my toolbar preferences and actually delete all of these items in here, going by tool manager, and actually go in, click on there and go and delete. Or I can come into ENV-Archive and just find my tool manager prefs and right click, go to icon and rename and set this to old. Hit enter, and then on our next reboot hit F12, reset Amiga. I just need a soft reset, I don't need a hard reset. Hard resets is as though you've taken a plug out of the wall, put it back in, or press the power off switch. You can see our toolbar no longer appears, and our if I go into the Workbench, double click on preferences, toolbar manager, and you can see I've got this error message as though I very first started, when I very first opened Tool Manager. You always get this error message when you very first open Tool Manager and you haven't saved anything. So this is as though it actually very first started. So let's change the MultiView look and feel. Go up to the top and go to Project and go to Open. And I'm going to pick one of these, doesn't really matter. Yeah, that's fine. Let's save that. So saving it should save to the preferences. So if we look on our Workbench, go into Preferences, go to the top, go Window, Show All Files. So by rights in the ENV, if we've got the full version of MultiView, look at MultiView, we should have a global preferences there in our MultiView folder. Now, when we reboot, what happens is that will be copied into the RAM. I'll just show you that now. Reset Amiga, soft reset. And when it next comes up, if we look at our Workbench preferences and look at the MultiView, so Window, Show All Files, Env-Archive, we've still got the MultiView directory, we've still got our preferences there, and that should be hoisted into the RAM. And we can check that by going to MultiView and double click on MultiView, and what we should see, this is our old preferences that was set. So if I jump into preferences and go back to the Env-Archive, and I'm just going to reset this one now. So I'm going to rename this one icon rename. So on our next reboot, what we should have is that our tool manager should come back, and if I rename this, rename global prefs, and I'm going to put that as old global prefs. So that was old global prefs. So our toolbar should come back, and our MultiView should be reset to the defaults. Let's try that. Hit F12, restart Amiga, soft reset, and then what should happen is that we come back in, and our MultiView is being set back to default, so we're getting this nice intro screen here. So MultiView has found that it's basically its very first start. It feels like it's very first started up. So that's the reason why we've got that intro screen. So if I look into my Workbench directory and go into my MultiView, double click the MultiView, and we should see it's all defaulted back to the defaults. So if we get ourselves into a right state, we can actually use the ENV-Arc to actually reset our settings. One of the things I'm going to quickly show you is on the shell. If I type in ENV : you can see that one's gone to the RAM disk. So if I do a dir in there, you can see the MultiView is in there, our tool manager press has been hoisted into memory, and we're all okay. And we can actually go to ENV-Arc, and we see with ENV-Arc that it's on the Workbench 3.1, press ENV-Archive. Do a dir in there, and you can actually see the individual files there. So this is a replica of what's in the RAM disk, because it's been copied from your hard drive or your Workbench 3.1 disk into memory for your actual Workbench to actually to use that. So that's actually how to reset any preferences back to default. Remember to always rename rather than delete, so if you do get yourself into trouble, you can actually revert back just by renaming the folder or file. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. If you like this video or any other videos on my channel, please pop over to my Ko-Fi site, or Ko-fi, however you want to pronounce it, and there you can actually support me by dropping me a few pounds, a few francs or dollars, whatever your currency is. All money will be turned back into the show, not just for buying me a coffee, and I'll be buying resources and equipment to actually produce and enhance my current videos on that site itself.